Hello, this is Jen from Windrose Fiber Studio. Today, let's crochet beaded coasters. For this project, you'll need 100% cotton in a worsted weight or size 4. I'm using Dishy by Knit Picks. I also have 6mm beads, a 5.5mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and also a beading needle. There are different kinds of beading needles. Here's a closer look at the one that I'm using, and I will leave specific links for the products that you see today below. We'll start off our project by chaining 14 loosely. If you have trouble controlling the size of your chain, or if your chains tend to be a little bit on the tight side, you can achieve a looser chain by using a larger crochet hook just for this chaining portion. We'll be working both into the back bumps of the chain and into the front of the chain. You can see that my chain's not oversized, but it is nice and loose. It'll be easy to work into this chain. And in row 1, I'm going to be working into these back bumps. Row 1, you'll work a single crochet in the second chain from your hook and in each stitch across. Then you'll chain 2 and turn. This row has a total of 13 stitches, and you'll see that I am working into the back bumps of the beginning chain. You'll notice that I gave as an option at the very beginning to start with a row of 13 foundation single crochet. If you chose to do so, then you'll skip row 1. You'll already have 13 single crochets. Just chain 2, turn, and you're all set for row 2. Rows 2 through 8 are all worked the same. You'll skip a stitch, you'll work a half double crochet in the next stitch, and then you'll go back and work a half double crochet in the stitch that you skipped. This creates a cross stitch. You'll do this 6 times across until only 1 stitch remains, and you'll work a half double crochet in that last stitch. Each of these rows will contain 6 cross stitches plus 1 half double crochet. If you're in the UK, or if a half double crochet is a new stitch for you, you yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And here we are at our last cross stitch, and then you can see there's 1 stitch left. So here's our very last stitch, and into this stitch we'll work that half double crochet. If we take just a moment to look at row 2, you can see we've got our 6 cross stitches. So let's chain 2 and turn and move on to row 3. I'm going to be speeding ahead since we're repeating the same pattern for rows 2 through 8. But I wanted to pause at the end of row 3 and just show you how nice and straight the side lines are. If your work is fanning out, it means your beginning chain is a little too tight. Here we are at the end of row 8. We've got our first row of single crochets and then 7 rows of cross stitches. Currently, our coaster is a square that measures 3.5 inches or just under 9 centimeters. We have just a little more crocheting to do. We're going to add a trim. So at the end of row 8, instead of chaining 2, just chain 1 and turn. Then you will work a 3 single crochet increase in the first stitch. That just means to place 3 single crochets in that stitch. You'll work 11 single crochets across. You'll work another 3 single crochet increase in the last stitch. On the next side, you'll space 11 single crochets evenly across. And then on the opposite side, from the first side where we started, you'll begin with a 3 single crochet increase, 11 single crochets across, and then in the very last stitch of that row, you'll do another 3 single crochet increase, and then you have one more side left and you'll work 11 single crochets evenly across. When you come to the end of this side, you can go ahead and cut your working yarn, pull on your hook to pull the yarn through, and we'll complete our work with an invisible finish off. So just thread this yarn through your yarn needle. We're going to go through the next stitch. This will be the stitch closest to you on the next corner. Work the yarn through that stitch. You can see I'm using the blunt side of my needle just so that I'm not dividing the plies. And then I'm going to go back through my last stitch, down from the top center. So I'm going down through the center of the stitch, and then I'm also picking up this thread that's right behind there. This just helps to anchor it. An invisible finish off creates the look of a stitch, which is a very nice clean finish, but for the sake of this project, I want you to pull that stitch and really close the gap between our last stitch and this stitch next to it. I'm going to take just a moment to weave in the beginning and ending tails. Our coaster now measures 4 by 4 inches or 10 by 10 centimeters, which is our desired finish size. This is big enough for your morning coffee mug, very important. Let's carry on and make our beaded trim. To start off, we're going to measure 36 inches or about 91 centimeters of our working yarn. The cotton I'm using is a 4-ply, and I'm going to divide this cotton in half. So you can see that I just have to twist it in the opposite direction, and inch by inch I can separate this 4-ply thread into two 2-ply threads. This is the thickness that we need to add our 6mm beads to our coaster. To begin our beading process, I'm threading our 2-ply yarn through my yarn needle. I'm going to start at the corner right next to our invisible finish off, and I'm going to attach this yarn to the back side of the corner. Notice that I'm pulling the yarn all the way through, and I'm weaving the far end of the yarn into the back of the coaster to hold this yarn in place. I'm doing 3 passes to make sure this yarn is nice and secure, and then I'm flipping my coaster back around to the right side. I'm going to pass this yarn through the far right stitch on this corner. So each corner is 3 single crochets. The single crochet on the far right is the one I'm speaking of. And then watch carefully, instead of pulling it all the way through, when there's just a little loop left, I pass the needle through the loop, and this anchors the yarn to the top of that stitch. Now I am switching needles. I'm going from my yarn needle to my beading needle. Now this is a large beading needle I have. Yours may look different or be smaller. This happens to be what I had on hand, but lots of different beading needles will work. I'm going to make sure that my beads are handy. And now let's see how we're going to attach these beads to our coaster. Thread your first bead, draw it down to the coaster, This bead is going to sit on top of the middle stitch of that corner. So I'm going to skip over that stitch and I'm going to attach my yarn to the next stitch on the left. First, I go from front to back through the coaster. I align my bead and make sure that it's as tight as I want it to be. And then I go back through the same stitch and I pull until there's just a little loop left, and then I pass my needle back through that loop and I anchor the yarn to that stitch. This is how we're going to work all of our beads all the way around. You're going to thread a bead and then you're going to skip the next stitch. So you've got the stitch that your yarn is attached to, and then you're going to skip the next stitch and you're going to work your needle front to back in the stitch after that. So you pass the needle all the way through and then you go back and you pass it through again. You stop when you have just a small loop left. Pass your needle through that little loop and that creates a knot that holds that yarn in place on that stitch. And then you'll just proceed to attach your beads in this fashion all the way around. The stitch count will work out so that there is a bead at the center of each corner, and you'll work your way all the way around the coaster until you get to the very end. This is where our invisible finish off is, so it might look like there's an extra stitch there. Just skip over the invisible finish off and place your last anchor in the same stitch where you placed your first anchor. After this last anchor, you'll weave in your final end on the back side of your coaster. That last cut always sounds so sweet because that means our project is complete. I like to give the sides a little tug, but I find that these coasters really don't need blocking. I chose to do 2 in blue and 2 in cream colored for a little set of 4. If you'd like to share it with me, I'd love to see how your coasters turn out. What colors did you choose? What kind of beads did you use? My Instagram is in the description below. I guess it's time to say goodbye. I hope you liked today's project. If you did, please hit like and subscribe. I post videos every Tuesday and I'm looking forward to sharing more patterns with you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.